Hey guys, this is Stefan. How are you? This is kind of the introductory series to LumiPro, and if you haven't watched the videos on the other parts of the ball lighting thing, you might want to consider peeking at those first because I'm going to assume you understand that, or you've already kind of figured it out on your own and you're looking for some hints, and you might be starting with this as your first video, so life is good. So I mentioned that there are two types of lights within LumiPro. There's the lights that are kind of like the lampshades, the face lights, and then there's this thing called a projector, and that's really the topic of this video. I'm going to go jump into the same thing I did last time and just kind of show you some real life photos. These are a few of mine. Here's an example of a fairly flat image. You can kind of look from the documentation on the eye. There's just kind of one light, and it's fairly straight on. You can, with a little bit of work with a flashlight, even you can get a little fancy on this sort of thing here. But this is a real example of the face lights. These lights are effectively Home Depot 50-watt light bulbs here, and something slightly fancier with something hanging over the front of it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But this is just effectively a couple lights. You can do good work with that. I mean, there's an example of this sort of work and a bunch more of them. And there's my final shot of that. But the thing I think we want to talk about is this thing called a projector, and you can kind of see what one looks like here. This casts a very directional light. I mean, you can tell obviously by the fact that the shadow that it's casting upon the model here. They come in a lot of different shapes and forms. Several of them, like say this one and a couple of these others, have the ability to put the colored gels over them if you want to change colors. Some of them are LED based, and you just change how you want to burn the LED, and some of them are ridiculously cool and fancy, and someday I will own 3 or 4 of these. So and as I mentioned, you can put a gel over them and change the color, and that's really painful in real life and really simple in LumiPro. So here's a couple examples of some shots that we were doing, kind of experimenting with it, and the lights are kind of in place here, and you can kind of see, some various options that you can get on that. And ultimately, a bunch more shots, and this was kind of my final. But the interesting thing about this is the shadow gives you an incredible amount of depth within, to understand the depth and the composition and whatnot within this thing. And it's a very cool thing that you can have in your toolbox. So LumiPro has that, and I'm going to show you that right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just real quick go into world, and I'm going to go to the environmental sky settings. I'm just going to make a new setting here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the ambient light down a whole bunch, and I may even tweak the gamma a little bit just to give us a little bit more. And if you just don't close this, your sky setting stays, and you can tweak it around. So in either case, this is just the better. Okay, so these are just the face lights that we've talked about before, and I can go into here and just set the intensity down to 0 and turn these things off. Now, there's one more within this, and this is the projector. When you give the lights to the model, it also gives you an option for a projector. Here is the projector right here. This thing casts a directional light, and down here you just select black when you want to deal with it, and I've got the intensity down. Let me just fire this bad boy on full blast here, and boom, there you go. So we now have this thing called something that's casting. Let me hide this thing here. It's casting a shadow. So what do you need to do to cast shadows? You have to go to your graphics settings and preferences, and you have to make sure shadows with sun, moons, and projector turn on, or just fire it on ultra. By the way, if you don't see shadows from the sunshine when you're outdoors, then you're not going to see the shadows from here. These are just some limitations of some older graphics cards to be able to do that. But all the things you would expect on the projector are true here. I can adjust the intensity. I can pick a color. I can pick a lot of colors. I can play with the intensity of the color. An interesting one is the radius. I got the radius set all the way out to 20 meters. And notice how it's casting all the way onto the back wall. I can actually adjust the radius so the light casts a shadow to a certain point, but then doesn't spill significantly past that. And this is all the stuff that you're used to. The way you move a projector is almost identical to the way you move the face balls. It's on a different menu. By the way, it's up here on the joystick, and if it's got the picture of the projector, you're done. If you have one of these others, there's this button right here that allows you to move around, and you can get to the joystick. And when you're on this light, the same things hold true. I can go down, I can go up, I can go left, I can go right, I can make it closer, I can take it farther away. And the cool thing about this light is this light works anywhere. This is also worn on the model. Notice how the model is moving around, and that doesn't seem to have any impact on the position of that light, which is kind of nice. But if the model starts walking, the light will actually start tracking the model, and this is really handy if, like, for you're doing runway work or if you're just out and about. The projector will continue to stay in place, and then when you find a spot and sit still, the projector is ready to go, and you just kind of move it around. So this is the introduction to the projector. Oh, one more thing I'll show you is you also have an option. You can also, on the res menu, and this is the first time I've talked about this thing, we can actually res a projector in here. And now there's actually two projectors on her right now. And what's interesting is they'll, oops, I locked this one down. They'll both move around. You can if you want to just work with one projector, the way you do that is if you click on the projector. Notice that little padlock appeared right there. Let me show that to you. Sorry, the room's kind of dark here. And now that projector's locked, and you can scoot around this other projector. And once you got, so let's say we want to make this one this color and set his intensity up. We'll lock him in position, unlock this one. We can make this like a really hardcore green. And I can move that projector around and whatnot. And if you notice, we're casting two shadows of two different colors back behind her here. So, and then we might want to pick our camera angle and actually move both of these things around here. Maybe I want a little more separation between these. I can do that too. Unlock them both, and then I can move them both around. A lot of different options. If they're both set and you set it, it actually sets both colors on both of them at the same time. So there's the first video. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about the different bulbs and gobos that are available.